Utilization-focused evaluation is an approach to evaluation. It underpins in many ways all of the approaches that we're working with over these next 2 days, but it also could encompass a whole host of other methods. But given our discussions, we decided to focus in on the 3 that most significant change, GEM, and outcome mapping. Really, the goal of utilization-focused evaluation is pretty straightforward. Intended use or uses by the intended user or users of the evaluation. But the thing that lots of research has shown, this may seem like an absolutely obvious point, but it doesn't often happen. I think all too often many of us have had experiences of being involved in an evaluation or being the subject of an evaluation, and then nothing happens more than a report is written. It's a very frustrating experience. It's a waste of resources when we don't have resources to waste, human and financial and energy. Probably time being one of the most precious of all the resources. And it also is inbuilt, utility is built into the international standards for program evaluation, meaning that evaluations that are deemed to be of appropriate quality are both rigorous and useful. So I think that's an important point to keep in mind. This isn't just trying to be practical. This is also the way the evaluation profession defines quality evaluation. So the intended uses, as it sort of explains, is the primary ways that the evaluation will be used. And I'll go into some examples of that in a second. And the intended users are those who will make a decision or whose actions will be informed by either the evaluation process or by the evaluation findings. And I like to use a differentiation in my own head to define users of an evaluation versus the audience of an evaluation. The audience of an evaluation can be much broader. A lot of people might be interested in the findings of the evaluation, but the users of the evaluation are those individuals who are going to do something, make a decision, change some action based on the evaluation. So it tends to be a much smaller set of people. And as Chadley mentioned, the key to keep in mind about utilization-focused evaluation is it doesn't advocate any particular content, any particular model, any particular type of data, or any evaluation theory. It really starts from the premise, what are the intended uses? And then it asks, what would be the appropriate evaluative purpose? What would be the appropriate type of data or mix of data? What would be the appropriate design? And what would be the appropriate focus for what you're trying to accomplish? So the use informs all of those decisions. And it informs the whole process of the evaluation from the very, very beginning to the very, very last activity that may happen. In a way, what I like to think of is that use is like the touchstone. So for every decision you have to make in an evaluation, you go back and you ask yourself, who's wanting to use this evaluation? How are they wanting to use it? And you engage them in the process of the evaluation in making those kinds of decisions. So the evaluation questions, you're asking, are those the information needs that you have? The choice of the evaluator, is this someone who will be credible to you, user of the evaluation? The timing, well, will the findings be available in time to meet the use you have, to make the decision, for example, you have? The format and the dissemination, different people consider different evidence credible and consider different formats the appropriate way that they will be able to do something with that evaluation. So you have to be responsive to your evaluation users. And you also have to think about budgeting for use, which is something quite different in utilization-focused evaluation. The evaluator takes on responsibility, and often you call yourself an evaluation facilitator, because you're not just standing back as an objective external party who's going to determine something. You're engaging with the user on the whole evaluation process. And you have to budget for all of that. So there are really two different kinds of uses that Michael Patton breaks down in this book. And the first are findings uses, meaning the conclusions or the findings that come from the evaluation process. And findings can be used to make a judgment about the merit or worth of the activity that's been evaluated, to improve a program, or to generate knowledge about what works and what doesn't work in certain contexts. So all of these are examples, and there may be others that you're going to come up with in terms of your projects of how findings can be used. Also, though, the process of evaluation can be useful. And this is probably the less thought of use of evaluation. But the process of planning and conducting an evaluation is actually often where a lot of the learning happens, and that's been our experience. And so some of the things or potential uses that you can think of when planning your evaluation and how it'll be used: enhancing shared understanding of the group. Why did we do what we did? Why did it happen the way it happened? We all have interpretations and different perceptions, but when you engage in an evaluation process, it allows you to share that perception and to build up maybe a more common understanding and a more evidence-oriented understanding of what happened and why it happened the way it happened. Similarly, it could be reinforcing the program intervention, and I think actually ICTs are a good example of this. So, for example, your program may be about supporting the use of Palm Pilots in certain health communities or health districts. Well, your evaluation could incorporate the use of those Palm Pilots in the data collection so that your evaluation is reinforcing the purpose of your program, so the process of the evaluation continues to build capacity. Also, you could have increasing ownership, increasing self-confidence, increasing engagement in the process. The evaluation can help you do that if you plan for it and if you carry out your evaluation that way. And finally, program and organizational development. There are different aspects about learning to learn. We all think we know naturally how to learn, but in fact, the further we get away from school, I think the harder it is for us to engage in a learning process. And so an evaluation can help you relearn those skills of how to do it as a professional and how to do it with your colleagues. So that's literally the basics. As I said, there's so much more detail and there's so many good practical tips in this book, but I just wanted to get out the fundamentals so at least we all start from the perspective when we're thinking about our evaluation. Who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? And then we continue from there. So I know Ricardo had sent you out some homework. Perhaps like myself, you may not have done all your homework. And so we wanted to give at least a few minutes at the outset for groups to start thinking about either define or refine your evaluation use and users. And you have a task sheet in your little pamphlet. And the 3 dimensions we'd ask you to work on are to define or redefine your list of primary intended users. And there could be one or there could be multiple. Define or refine your list of uses. And I just put the page numbers if you want to do a quick read of a few pages on findings use from Patton's book or process use from Patton's book. It might be handy for you. And finally, to work on your evaluation questions. I have to be honest, that's the trickiest part from my experience, is to get really solid evaluation questions. And I think when Chat and Ricardo and Chadley and Jess and I were talking on email, we all agreed that that's not an easy process because there's lots you're going to want to know. But what is it that you can reasonably ask? What can evidence help you understand that you maybe don't understand or you have a certain understanding of at this point? So of the 3, my suggestion is you spend the most time on this activity. And again, I posted pages 29 to 32 because Michael has a nice little checklist of looking at your evaluation questions from a use perspective to make sure that you're really focusing in on the most important questions that your evaluation can help you get at. And then in the end, as Ricardo mentioned, we'd ask you to either write it up on this and stick it up on the wall, or take a piece of flip chart paper, or take some of the sticky notes that are at the back in the poster table, and put it up here, and then we're not going to do plenaries, but we'll offer more opportunities to walk around and have a look. And Ricardo, myself, Jess, Chat, we're all available to help you, and you have at least one partner to work with and brainstorm on your individual projects.